Welcome to the Hot Mess Cosmic Express, where we talk about the stars, shuffle a few cards, and never pretend to have our shit together. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am your host for today, Darcy Britt, and I'm so excited that you guys have joined us for another episode because we're going to kick off talking about the first quarter moon in Aquarius, which is actually going to hit us on Wednesday, October the 29th at about 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, always check your local listing. And first quarter moons are notorious for being challenging. And even though it's just a really quick phase, so first quarter moons, I'm just going to say this, that only really happens when the moon is at exactly 50%. And that happens very, very quickly, that it goes from 50% to 51%, just because the moon moves so quickly throughout her cycle, right? So if you remember, it takes the moon 28 and a half days to make a full circle around the zodiac wheel. So moves pretty quickly from that first quarter moon on around to 51%. But even though it's really, really quick, a lot of times we can feel that energy kind of amping up as we move towards that first quarter moon, and then maybe just decreasing a little bit as we go past it. I know personally, today is, I think it's Sunday, and the first quarter moon is on Wednesday. So we've still got like 3.5 more days. But I have been just really feeling a little bit funky this last couple of days. And as I really started to sit down and talk about or write out the notes that I wanted to talk about today with the first quarter moon in Aquarius, it really kind of hit me because, in general, when we talk about this first quarter moon in Aquarius, it's really going to prompt you to realize that it is time to give your mind a break. We have all been on probably mental and emotional overload lately. And as we approach that first quarter Aquarius moon, not only is the moon in Aquarius, but the sun is in the sign of Scorpio. And because these two are at what we call in astrology, it's called a square aspect, right? So it means that, put it this way, when we talk about the new moon, everything's happy and it's good, right? Well, that's a conjunction. That's when the moon and the sun are in the exact same spot and everything's great. But now we've moved, about 7 to 10 days away from that new moon. And even though the sun is still sitting there in the sign of Scorpio, the moon has already moved along, right? She goes very, very quickly. So she's already over in the sign of Aquarius. And because where those two sit on the chart, Scorpio and Aquarius, this is called a square aspect. And square aspects are not good aspects. I shouldn't say they're bad aspects, but like I said, the new moon is all like happy and things are good. And then, you kind of think like the full moon, everything is like batshit crazy. Well, that first quarter moon is like a really nice in between, literally, of that happy-go-lucky of the new moon and that batshit crazy of the full moon. So it's a challenge. And if you're manifesting, it's a great thing to pay attention to, because at the time of those quarter moons, the first quarter moon specifically, those are times where, we're 7 days into usually setting a new goal. And historically, and I guess psychologically speaking, about 7 to 10 days into setting a new goal is when those old habits start to creep back in, right? Or we start to get challenges. I always like to use my weight loss journey as an example. And, it almost never fails that when I kick off a new health minded goal around the time of the new moon, by the time of the first quarter moon, I'm generally being challenged to just chuck it all and just forget it, right? But so, like, for example, let's say I've decided I want to drink X amount of water, ounces of water a day. And so, as a part of that, I had like this really special cup and I'm really drinking so great and I'm doing super, super great. Well, guess what? Right around the time of that first quarter moon, whether I acknowledge it or not, and that's what's really cool about this, guys, is because once you start to look at your goals, you'll be like, holy crab balls, it is actually like a quarter moon or a full moon. And if I just push through this, I'm going to be good, right? But so let's say I get to that first quarter moon and I've left my cup at home or I left my cup at work or something happened. Well, it would be really easy for me to just say, you know what, forget it. I don't have my special cup. I'm not going to worry about drinking all my water today. What I'm really going to do is just go to Starbucks. I'm going to go get me a fountain pop at McDonald's, whatever it is. Well, if you approach it as, okay, this is a challenge, right? This is something that's meant to kind of throw me off, which is very much that first quarter moon energy. You can kind of outsmart it and be like, you know what? I am going to stick with this. Even though I left my fancy schmancy cup at home, I'm still going to stick with my goal to drink X amount of ounces of water a day. And guess what? You're going to feel so amazing at the end of the day. But I kind of digress there, but I guess I should say that's my whole point about what that first quarter moon energy is. So I really would encourage you, because today's Sunday, I would guys encourage you guys as we move up to Wednesday, the 29th of October, pay attention to what's going on in your life and those goals that you might have set for yourself, whether it was this new moon or another one, or it's just a goal that you've set. But just pay attention to that energy. And if you feel like things are getting you off your game, just try to push through it. Okay. That's just some advice when you want to just deal with a phase energy of the moon, right? So when we're doing this and I talk about the moon, we're always going to start with the phase energy and we're going to layer more stuff onto it. Okay. So we've got that phase energy. And I just talked about that first quarter Aquarius moon phase energy and how it is like a challenge. So just to give you a few keywords that might come along with that first quarter moon, it's like choices to make, right? We've got choices to make on which way we want to go ahead, and it sometimes does make us change course. So if you feel like you're changing course, that's completely fine. But in general, the first quarter moons are all about finding balance and sticking with your discipline. And a big part of that comes from when I talked about before that aspect that's a square with the moon and the sun. You know, when we talk about the moon is all about our emotional energy. Okay. And so the sun is all about where life and where ego is kind of pushing us. So when we have this quarter moon or first quarter moon, and these guys are squaring off, what it does is it creates a tension between that emotional energy and your ego. So your emotional energy is where the moon is going to be, pulling you. So that's why we take a look at the sign of the moon, which this month is in Aquarius. That tells us, hey, some of our energy around our emotions and things may be very Aquarius like. Okay. So that's where our emotions are going to be. But if we flip things over and we look at where the sun is, remember, these guys aren't really getting along right now. And the sun is all about being in the spotlight, and the sun is all about ego. And usually the sun overshadows the moon, meaning life overshadows our emotions, if you really think about it that way. So when we have this first quarter moon and the sun is having that, or I'm sorry, the sun is in that aspect, sorry, that is where your life or ego is going to be pushing you to get things done. And that will be very Scorpio like as we move towards this first quarter moon in Aquarius. And that's because the sun is in Scorpio, if I didn't say that before. So just to let you guys know. So let's talk a little bit more about the signs. So, sign of moon is Aquarius and the sign of the sun is Scorpio as we do this first quarter moon in Aquarius. Just remember, every time we're talking about this, guys, when I say the moon is in blank, as in the first quarter moon in Aquarius, that means that's the sign where the moon is. Has nothing to do with the sun. I know the sun and her and his ego are really not probably very happy about that, but this is all about the sign of the moon. So take a second, guys, before I really dive into this. Grab your birth charts, right? And take a look at where you can find the sign of Aquarius and the sign of Scorpio. And that's going to help you understand a little bit more about where in your life you're going to feel some of this tension as I dive into the keywords for the both of those. Okay. All right. So let's jump in here. So, when we talk about the first quarter moon in Aquarius, that's where your emotions are going to be. They're going to have a very Aquarius like energy. So, let's just talk really, really quickly about a few keywords for Aquarius, which is actually known as like the genius or the inventor or the future thinker of the zodiac. It's a very intellectual sign. So, of course, it's an air sign, but it's constantly analyzing things and it really, really likes to kind of figure out solutions to problems, which is great, but sometimes there's not always a problem. And to be honest with you, sometimes not everybody wants to hear the solutions that we have to those problems. But that's a little bit of the Aquarius energy. So, because it can be analytical and it likes to really approach most things in life from an intellectual standpoint, it's not that there aren't emotions there, but it is that the emotions that are felt are more intellectual. So emotions that make sense. And because we have to even in that aspect think about we're talking about emotions that make sense. Well, yeah, that can sometimes be that Aquarius energy. Well, that doesn't make sense that I feel that way. So I should feel another way. And in that I guess I should say in that way, Aquarius can sometimes even overthink their emotions. And that is a little bit of the flavor that we get with this first quarter moon in Aquarius is that overthinking of emotions and that over analyzing of emotions. So if you're feeling that, just know that you may be very, very moon sensitive, or you may even notice that people around you are feeling kind of that vibe. So, where is life going to be pushing you as we move into this first quarter moon in Aquarius? Well, that would be some Scorpio energy. And that is because, as I said before, the sun is in the sign of Scorpio. And Scorpio is a water sign. Now, I mentioned before that Aquarius is an air sign, and I just said Scorpio is a water sign. From a compatibility standpoint, you can already see that these two don't mix and that it's already a clashing energy because water does not go with air when we talk about elemental compatibility. So we've already got a little bit of a yikes, a little bit of some tension that's growing there. But those Scorpio words that I'm going to talk about here, this is where life is going to be pushing you. Okay. So, and it happens differently for everybody, but this just gives you a general idea because, as I said before, life tends to overshadow our emotions. So, once you know where the sun is at, it helps you to understand where that kind of that overshadowing may be taking place so you can plan ahead and be like, all right, I'm not going to let it railroad my emotions and just throw everything off course. But so Scorpio is known to be a little bit dark, a little bit mysterious. It really likes to go deep. If you think about a scorpion, which is the actual symbol for the sign of Scorpio, they live way underneath ground. They only come up when it's dark outside. You know, if you live out anywhere in like a warmer climate, you've ever had to deal with scorpions, I believe you have like little lights and you can take out in the backyard and try to find nests because they're down and deep and below. So when we think about that, well, how could life or our ego be pushing us to go deep down or below? Well, there could be some situations in your life that are going to require you to do some, you know, deep, dark thinking or some hard pressed thinking, which is okay, especially because we pair it up with Aquarius, but not when it comes to our emotions. Because what happens then is we end up around this first quarter moon in Aquarius, we end up overthinking everything. We end up becoming suspicious about things that we are emotional about, whether it's suspicion about people, places, or things. But that Aquarius overthinking, when you pair it with the Scorpio overthinking with that first quarter Aquarius moon, you know, I'm going to tell you right now, your mind is going to be your worst enemy. And as we approach this, so your best bet is just to loosen your grip a little bit on things and give your mind a break. Plan ahead. Don't let these overactive emotions or overactive thoughts about things that you're emotional about ruin everything that you have worked so hard to build, whether it's a goal that you've just set or whether it's something that you've been working on for a while. Maybe it's some life changes you're trying to, I can't even use the right word, what's the word, incorporate into your life. Don't let this first quarter moon Aquarius overthinking, over analyzing energy screw everything up for you. Now, on that same aspect, I want you to think about being more aware. A lot of this working with the moon is about using emotional intelligence to navigate things and to not let life steer us so off course. So when we look at that first quarter moon in Aquarius, and I just mentioned that, we're going to be overthinking a lot and we're going to need to give our mind a break. Pay attention. If you are between now and the time of that first quarter moon on Wednesday, October the 29th, starting to get a little suspicious, or if you find yourself thinking, like, I wonder what that person really meant, or I bet they meant more to that than what they really said. You better check yourself before you wreck yourself, my friend, because that is the kind of thing that this first quarter moon is just hell bent on trying to get us to do or trying to do to us. So it is just super important that you mind your P's and Q's and don't let that overactive mind and that overactive emotional energy of Aquarius pair up with that Scorpio that's going on out there in the world. And just these two could just literally burn down everything you've done. So, again, I know I kind of glossed over that a little bit, but I didn't want to make this too long of an episode. But when we talk about Aquarius, it's super analytical. It likes to really, really go in and find problems and dig in and figure out what's really at the crux of it all. And then we've got Scorpio, which is where the sun is, and it also likes to go deep. It likes to find mysteries, even sometimes when there aren't any. And it can be a little bit jealous and it can be a little bit stingy and it can kind of hold some grudges. And so that really brings us around to my biggest piece of advice for you guys as far as this first quarter moon in Aquarius goes for 2025 is that you better watch out for a tendency to overthink or to be suspicious of things that you are emotional about as we approach that first quarter moon. Just make sure that you're giving your mind a break and that you are not, I guess, again, just overthinking things. So, what you ought to do is just plan ahead right now. So, think about it. Okay, well, you may not be able to understand or identify what may be emotionally triggered or what this flavor may be for you unless you check out the houses on your chart. Ha, that's a key there. But you can at least be cognizant if you start to feel those thoughts and emotions colliding and you start to feel like you are getting yourself into a really tizzy. Give yourself a check out or a timeout and just let things relax until after that first quarter moon goes away. I can promise you this is really just a phase. It's not that you don't need to deal with your emotions and your feelings, but because these two clash so deeply, it is very, very important that you just let it all go, no matter if it's something that you're feeling, or maybe someone in your life comes up and they all of a sudden they're very just boom, very suspicious, very jealous. It's take a second and realize that we are in this first quarter moon week, you guys. And if other people around you are going batshit crazy, you can be smart and be emotionally intelligent about it. Take a step back, calm things down, and then regroup with that person once that time, once that first quarter moon phase is over. And honestly, because it will be so quickly, we're talking like Thursday morning. It's really just going to be a little bit of a kerfluffle between now, which is like Sunday, through about Wednesday night at about midnight, and things should be a whole lot better. Now, I know that that was a lot of information to give you guys, and it may be a little bit jumbled, but I at least wanted to get this recorded and get it out to you. So, just to remember as we recap this, first quarter moon energy is usually pretty rough. This month, with the Aquarius first quarter moon, we have the sun in Scorpio and we have the moon in the sign of Aquarius. This is going to be an especially rough first quarter moon. And the way that it's going to be rough is that we are going to have a tendency, or the universe is going to have a tendency, to be pulling us to go really, really deep and dark into some areas that we really don't want to dive into right now. And that is totally okay. You can deal with them, but as we get to this first quarter moon energy, it's really, really going to be crazy. Okay. So do some things to give your mind a break, whether it's reading a book, maybe it's playing Candy Crush. Y'all know that's my vice. These are just things you can plan ahead for now, that if that energy gets to be too much and either you need to give yourself a timeout or you need to give somebody else a timeout, meaning like, I shouldn't say you shouldn't do that, but maybe you need to, walk away from somebody else. These, if you've got some ideas of things you're going to do now, it's a lot easier to do it then, right? Instead of running around and freaking out about things, if you already know, okay, you know what, I'm going to go to the bathroom for a second, run my hands under some nice cool water for about 30 seconds, dry them off, take 3 deep breaths, and then I'll come back in and talk about this if I have to. That's what I'm talking about when I speak of emotional intelligence when we're working with this moon. So, that was the quick, the down and the dirty, guys. Again, my name is Darcy Britt. I am a certified moonologer and moon manifesting coach. I'm also a professional tarot reader, believe it or not, among a few other crazy things. But one of my favorite things is that I am the co host of the Hot Mess Cosmic Express. And I'm really, really glad that you guys have joined and hopefully listened in this long. Feel free to head over to our Facebook group, also named the Hot Mess Cosmic Express. You can engage with Tracy and I there. We do our best to try to keep up, but I'll be honest, she's a whole lot better at it than I am. I am a self professed, just not fan of social media, and I just can't get my butt in there to do stuff a whole lot. So, but we would love it if you guys would join us over there. And also, please like and follow us on your favorite podcast station. And hey, if you've got a friend that you think could benefit from learning more about how the stars might affect their life and the astrology really is real, please, please, please do us a solid favor and share this podcast. We only grow by word of mouth, and we really, really appreciate it. So, again, guys, Darcy Britt, and I am signing off. Bye.